is what this album is for Craig David. Born to Do It 2000. My goodness. Anybody who was around that time knows every song from this album. And it's beautiful. And I've listened to basically everything Craig David has done. And unfortunately, it seems this is just the one. But it's all good. Welcome back. That was Can Be Messing Around from that album. That's the second track, actually, of that classic. Well, it's Hard Facts in 92.3 Nigeria Info. Sam Oracle Chinedu. That is what those who want to call me decide to call me. And I'll definitely answer them. Our conversation for this hour borders on education. There is a lot to unpack. This is as the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board has announced 150 as a cutoff mark for admissions into universities. JAMB made the decision during the 2025 policy meeting on admissions held in Abuja. Today, it said the cutoff mark for colleges for nursing stands at 140, colleges of agriculture 100, while colleges of education remain 100. On his part, the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, said the federal government has formally set 16 years as the minimum age for admissions into Nigeria's tertiary institutions. The minister said the age requirement is mandatory and non-negotiable. He warned that heads of institutions found complicit in admission fraud will face strict legal consequences. Well, following that announcement, as you can imagine, you don't really have to be smart to figure it out, JAMB was trending across various social media platforms. And ex-users were reacting. They said that 150 is about 37.5%. And in some other countries, that really doesn't get you anywhere. And so it speaks to everything, really, that is wrong or maybe right with the system. We've reached out to JAMB. Unfortunately, today was not a good day for a conversation, so I'm hoping that subsequently that can happen. But what does this mean? What is it reflective of? What statements does this make? Also, especially at this time, there are problems with ASU. People are also attacking the president. There's backlash stating that you have given scholarship to students from other countries. Meanwhile, the education system in the country is dilapidated. But my guest is Dr. Isaac Wadiono. He's a public affairs analyst and an educator. Of course, this is his sector, so he's very much a stakeholder here. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Rivers people. Good afternoon, Sir Moran Kuchinedu.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes, indeed. It's always a pleasure. So, as a player in the sector for decades, I believe, before we get into the analysis, what was your first reaction when you heard that 150 is a JAMB cutoff?
Sam, a country gets the kind of leader that they want. In this sense, I'm not talking about political leaders. Okay? So, by extension, we can also stretch it. A country gets the caliber of scholars that they have by reason of the decision that they take. That's exactly the truth. You finished it all by actually presenting the percentage value of what the federal government. The first thing that came to my mind is that has the level of education so degenerated that 50%, which is even half, wouldn't even serve for the cutoff point. In that case, we'll be looking at 275. Then it also has its own implication for us. Those of us who went to schools in the 90s and now that are outside here. I remember in our days, if you score 278 and you want to say you want to go to any university, they will tell you sorry. Today, we are basking in the euphoria that somebody has scored 150, which is even which is 37.5%. By approximation, is 38. So if we go by that, what caliber of people will we be producing in the next 10 years? Don't just go too far. In the next 10 years, it means that JAMB will be irrelevant, or perhaps if you score 1%, you can be admitted into the university. And the painful part of it is that these people enter the university, and before you know what is happening, they will just award them first class. First class is also and so. They don't go back to look at what is their JAMB score at the point of entry. That's number one. And then those of us who went to schools in the 90s. I knew some brilliant chaps who were given 2-2 and they wept and wept. They went back to do their masters immediately so that they can redeem themselves. Now people are scoring 100 to enter the university. They come back with 2-1 and they are all over the place telling you I'm a scholar. So it shows you the kind of society we are building for the next future.
But there are questions about, as much as the federal government will obviously get its fair share of blame, the education system itself. Because, Doctor, I know that you understand where, how do I explain this? Maybe there is mass failure. And so for this reason, we decide to shift the goalpost. Oh, nobody got up to 200. Nobody got up to this. So let's, reduce the bar a bit so that people can cross over. Those kinds of situations, and do they not provide some kind of remedy as against keeping the cutoff where it's supposed to be and admitting only very few?
Most Nigerian universities run other programs that can lead you to the university, apart from JAMB. There's an A-level class, there's a pre-degree program, there are basic programs. These are doors to entering the university if you are unable to go through the route of JAMB. And none of these programs have been abolished by government. So if we really mean business with respect to education, these other ones would have been activated and will stick to 50, which is the minimum. But I read through a lot this afternoon, and I found out that even vice chancellors of private universities are even saying that the thing should be fixed for 120, so that more students can come to private school. So you can see the value that is attached to it. How do you compare somebody who scored 150 and then the person who scored 300, then they all graduate, do NYC together? When it is time for employment, the person with 150 has a father, a godfather, a government house. The person is given employment, and the person who made a first class, or perhaps who has gone through a very rigorous process with that kind of score, is told you are from this other ethnic group. No. If we want to move forward, we must change our policy with respect to education. That's the simple truth.
Okay.
150 for university admission is a no-no, please. But that also has a way of affecting us. Because when you go to foreign university, they tell you, what is your grade? What did you leave the university with? You say, I left the university with a 2-1. With which 2-1? What is the parameter? If you are unable to produce the parameter, what is calling you a scholar? A scholar in Nigeria is a scholar anywhere. So we cannot water down the scale and then think that the British government is looking down on us. No, it's not supposed to be. Please.
Okay. Now, Doctor, is a uniform cutoff mark realistic given the disparity in the quality of education between urban and rural? We know that even in a state, for the most part, the quality that they get in the city is a bit higher than what they get in the rural areas. Then in Nigeria as a whole, we know some regions, some parts of the country where it is perceived that the standard of education is lower than other parts. So having a uniform cutoff mark, is it realistic?
There are very good marks. There are rural schools that are star performers in our system.
Okay.
I don't know whether you get the point I'm making.
I do.
That couldn't be a criteria for assessing it. If somebody lives in a chain and another person is living in Port Harcourt town, there's every likelihood that they all went through the same scheme, the same syllabus, the same teacher went through the same. The difference is the environment. I agree that the environment has a lot of influence. But that shouldn't be a criteria for admitting people into the university because you went to a local school in the village. So for that reason, you should be given concession. It is not done. You can do that in other places. Education is life. It's eternal, if you don't understand. Education is a way of measuring the culture and the ethics of a particular people. So we don't water it down because we want it to suit us. Otherwise, there will be a very big problem for the future. So there's no need using that particular parameter for assessing education. No, we should look for other things to do.
Now, how do we make up for the vacuum that has been created? A lot of public schools, whether it's in the city or in the villages, they face their fair share of problems. No teachers, dilapidated buildings and all of that. And so by the time the child gets to the point of writing an entrance examination, they are not equipped through no fault of theirs. So could this be maybe, some measure to try to make it up to them for the failure of government?
No, sir. If we come from that line of argument, the argument will be very porous. The reason why it will be porous is this. It is no making of anybody, okay? Like the adage goes, it is not compulsory that you must go to government school. If you cannot go to government school, you can go to a private school. If you cannot afford to go to a private school, you can do self-help. Some of us actually did self-help in our days in school. We studied. I went to a local school in the village. There's no doubt about that. But I had the enthusiasm to read and also study in order for me to get to where I am today. That's exactly the truth. Let me tell you, this idea of welfareism, believing that government will solve all your problems, is the beginning of problem in education. And in the actual sense, government does not solve problems with respect to education. Let's get it clear. Government is supposed to be a regulator, and government is supposed to hire people, okay, for the services. Education is a social service as well as something else in the society. So government is supposed to provide the necessary things, but it also leaves a mark on the part of government institutions and agencies that are responsible for inspection and supervision. You know, so you go back again and do your due diligence in that area. If they have done what they are supposed to do, they are supposed to report to government, and where it is not possible, don't stop us from taking public actions against government. For instance, it is possible for a whole community to protest that they don't have a chemistry teacher for 5 years, because they know that the chemistry teacher is a potential medical doctor in the next 7 years. It is possible, but we don't do such things. But what we do is that we say, okay, let's wait, government will provide. Government will do nothing until we begin to do something. So that's the part that addresses those in the village. And then we also look at parents. What do parents live for? Do they live for cars, or they live for houses, or they live for what? What are they living for? They're supposed to live for value, and one of such value is to make sure that your generation succeed. Parents are making big money. They are sending their children to public schools where there are no facilities, or perhaps where there are no teachers. By the end of the day, these same parents that refuse to send their children to where they will learn will be the one that will pay big sum of money for their children to be admitted into the university. Well, is it not penny wise, pound foolish? That's exactly the scenario. So if parents actually value the education of their children, let them make sacrifice. That is the essence of making money. Money is not just for you to go to club at night and then carry people alongside with you. No, that's not the issue. Money is for you to better the lives of people around you. That's exactly the essence.
Doctor, while I get the point you've made, and as valid as it is, we must also not underestimate the victimhood of the student, because they are literally victims, right? Whether it's the responsibility of government to sort it out or the parents are not doing what they should, some of these kids are not exposed to the available options that maybe you had while you were at that stage in life. So while deliberating through what the solution should be, time is elapsing, and well, it's time for the exam, and they're not ready.
Yes. So let me tell you something, Sam. Do you understand?
I'm listening.
Go and check the history of those who are scholars. There's an inward intuition in them that is the driving force. Do you understand? If you read the history of Awolowo actually succeeded in his days without going to the university by doing self-study at home, by writing external GC. I'm sure you have heard such stories.
Yeah.
How many children today are willing to read and study on their own? That's number one. The reading culture has died. You know that children in school nowadays are not ready to read. They are so attached to their systems, they are so attached to their phones, they are so attached to their iPad, then at the expense of reading. You know, you cannot cheat nature. If you refuse to read, you prepare the ground to fail. That's just as simple as that. You know, I don't mean this kind of bourgeois education where you cannot go, your parents will actually sponsor you. No. Some of us went through system because I knew my father was a school teacher, and so for that reason he doesn't have that kind of money, and I have to make the sacrifice. So how many children are willing in these days to make that kind of sacrifice? That's number one. And then number two, if a parent live in the city, there is nothing stopping the parents from going to the school of the children to ask questions. How many parents take time out to go through the notes of their children to find out what is even the progression of scheme in the school their children attend? If you start monitoring the progression of scheme in the school your children are attending, over time, you'll be able to tell whether this school is healthy or not. And there's no one stopping you from changing your children from one government school to another. Even location can even solve that kind of problem. I don't know whether you understand the point I'm making.
Yes, I do.
It is not an excuse. What I mean is that if we want to see education as an enterprise, we must put in everything that it requires. One of them is the parents must make sacrifice. The students must get ready to do what they're supposed to do. The society must live up to their bidding by raising concern that government is not doing enough. And then we should also be strong enough to talk to government when it matters most, that these roads and these things are building, they are of no value to us if by tomorrow the human element or the human capital development in our society are useless. It is of no value to us.
All right, Doctor, we have a break coming up now. After that break, we'll be talking about the minimum age for university admission. The education minister states that it's 16. Please stay with us.
It's all right. I'm with you. Thank you, sir.
Nigeria Info, Sam Oracle Chinedu here. We're talking about the JAMB cutoff. It has been cut down to 150. And JAMB made the decision during the 2025 policy meeting on admissions held in Abuja. It said the cutoff mark for colleges for nursing stands at 140, colleges of agriculture 100, while colleges of education remain 100. On his part, the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, said the federal government has formally set 16 years as the minimum age for admissions. I guess it's Dr. Isaac Wadiuno, still on the phone. You're welcome once again, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me here.
That was a pleasure. Now, the Education Ministry insisting that 16 is the minimum age for university admission. Is that practical?
Well, Sam, before I take that, please, can I just add one more thing to what we were discussing before?
All right. No problem.
Sam, how would you feel when you know that those who score 100, which is 25% of a test, are those who are pushed into the classroom for training, and after 4 years, these ones are now out to retrain others for education? What quality of product are you expecting? That somebody who scored 100 in JAMB is eligible to go into faculty of education for training, and after which the person comes out with a first class, and then he begins to teach as a teacher. How do you now justify it by way of conscience that you are a scholar? That's just by the way. Sam, when I was actively in the classroom as a teacher, I knew a family that sent their son from Nigeria here to the UK to go and study, and the boy was 17. The boy was denied admission. The parents had no option than to send him to NIT and in D-line for 2 years before he traveled abroad to go and study. So we're looking at best practice. When we're talking about best practice, I mean what is obtainable, in a larger society that can actually pass acceptable practice. 16 is not bad, but I think if you are using 16, there should be a criteria that the person is a genius. Otherwise, there's nothing wrong in staying at where we were before, especially for those who have actually progressed at their own pace. There's nothing wrong. At 16 is good, but where are we rushing to, for God's sake? If a child entered the university to study history, for instance, by the time he's 21, he's a graduate. Has he internalized the virtue? If he goes into study medicine, how will he be able to differentiate between consign, societal value, and, educational value? If he or she graduates at 21 as a medical doctor, and then does his or her housemanship and NYC at 25, is still manageable. But for these 4 years courses, at 16, the person is graduating at 20. Where are we rushing to, for God's sake?
Well, I know that there are points for and against. It might not necessarily be rushing, right? It might be that the opportunity has been presented and it's important to take it as early as possible. Now,
Sam, this is my field.
Yeah.
So I can actually educate you on that.
Okay, please.
For you to go to a pre-nursery, you must have been 3 years.
Okay.
That's the ideal age. If you do early childhood, at 3 years, you are going to school, we are getting you familiarized. It will take you another 2 to 3 years to complete that stage and move into the next stage, which is primary school.
Okay.
And then you do 6 years, even though most schools now are reducing it to 5. So at that level, it is assumed that at 10 or 11, you are in secondary school.
Okay.
If you enter school at secondary school, at the later part of your 11, by the time you are done with your year 1, you are 12. 12 plus 5 is 17. You are missing nothing. You are going at your own pace. So the idea that the child is a scholar, for God's sake, I don't doubt the fact that some children are actually very brilliant in terms of cognition. But education is matching your class with your age so that you can, decipher what is being taught in the class. The possibility that you can actually solve the mathematical question is not in doubt. But will you be able to relate it to your age? Sam, when I went to the university, I was much younger. But I saw people who were older than me and who had worked. And when it comes to business sense, they are more advanced and better. So let's leave that issue. It's not that the child is too brilliant. Let the child go. No. It's just a lame excuse that parents are giving. And where does it end up? Parents will tell you my child finished school at 16 or finished university at 20. So how does it help the society? If the child is coming back to stay at home and there's no employment, is that not capable of causing another problem? Then you push them in for a master's program. They do the master's program. They finish the PhD program. By the end of the day, they are paper scholars, but they don't have value for the society. That's the issue.
Well, doctor, the reason why I said what I did was because, and this might be my personal sentiment, right? I have said before, even on radio, that if I had to do it all over again, I will gain enlightenment and not education. And I say that because...
That's big.
I say that because there's a part of me that feels like the 4 years that I used for university could have been deployed somewhere else. And don't get me wrong, right? You see, I'm trying to watch my words as I say what I want to say, so that somebody does not say, Sam, no like school, so let us not go. No, that's not where I'm going. I have seen that all of that time given, I have learned in a space of 2 or 3 months more than I learned in 4 years through different courses and some of the opportunities that are available today. Right?
Wow.
And I wish I had invested that time in some other engagement, learning something practical. Now, where I'm going with this is, if the opportunity is presented, a child is done, and in Nigeria, there's also the consideration of you stay home, maybe you take JAMB the first time. And that reason why this JAMB is pissing me off is because my first JAMB, which was very close to 200, could not admit me. So I had to take a second one. So, with the Nigerian factor, you stay home, you take JAMB, you take it again the next year, and some of all these things. If a child is done with secondary at 16 and the opportunity is presented, they take the exam, they pass, why would we need to keep them for an extra year for the purpose of maturity? While that is valid, right, is it enough to hold them back for an entire year?
No, if you listen to my response, I said if the child is brilliant, and he's 16 or thereabouts, rather than keeping the child there like what is obtained in advanced society, put him in school. It's a different ballgame.
Okay.
So, but if the child is an average student, just because the parents have the wherewithal to push the child into a school, that is what is responsible for this antisocial behavior that we have. Sam, I'm not bold to say that there are a lot of children in the university who are into courtesan because they have no direction.
True.
They came into the school, they had no direction. They were not properly tutored. What their parents told them is that, okay, Chief's son is in the university, you go to let them not say that my own is at home. My dear brother, the journey to the university is a personal decision. It is not about competition. It's a quest to beat, or to attain what you want in life. You are not competing with anybody, you are competing with yourself. The earlier you know that, the better for you. That will inform the step you take. It will affect the relationship you enter into in the university. It will affect the kind of dealings you have with your lecturer. It is only when the child is brilliant and is a genius that I will approve for the child to go to the university. Even at that, the child needs to be shielded from other vagaries that are in the university. That's good.
Okay, finally, doctor, what needs to be a sustainable solution to the minimum age for admission and, by extension, of course, the previous conversation we had of the cutoff of 150, if we must develop our education?
Sam, I've always told you in the past, and it's not going to be different from what I have said in the past. Do schools really prepare their children for JAMB? Extremely no. That is the answer. Schools don't prepare children for JAMB classes. They don't prepare children for JAMB examination. They only prepare them for SSCE. And you know what? JAMB is 2 steps higher than SSCE. That is the truth. So we don't blame the children for having low score. We blame the parents for not actually thinking out the initiative that their children need to go through extra classes for their JAMB classes. You don't write SAT, for instance, from your school without preparation. So why should we do that to JAMB? That's a valid argument. That's number one. Then number two, we should begin to look at the quality of teachers that we have. So we have teachers that can replicate 97 in JAMB for a subject, 99. We have them. But the truth of the matter is that they don't have access. Think of a situation where teachers are recruited on ethnic grounds, or maybe because they have a relation in the House of Rep or in the House of Senate, or perhaps they are connected to the government. Say, push him into a school, let him have something doing. Such teachers won't produce results. So what is wrong in running gifted children's school like what we had in the former Suleja Academy, special model school for science and art? Why are we not running such? These are primary solutions to having a very good educational program that will bring value. Then above all, on the issue of age, JAMB said if you are not up to 16, you shouldn't register. Under pressure, they registered. And I'm looking at the statistics of children who wrote exam that are between the age bracket of 16 and 17. We just discovered that they are not even up to 25% of the total score made in JAMB. So what are we talking about? What we are saying here is this: allow the children to go at their own pace. You will be the ultimate beneficiary. Okay. That's my argument, conclusion. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. What do you know? It's always wonderful doing this with you. We appreciate it. Have a beautiful day, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Rivers people. God bless you.
God bless you too. Okay. 150 is the cutoff. My job, as regards this conversation and many others, of course, is supposed to just present the facts, have conversations, analysis where necessary. But once in a while, if necessary, opinions will be shared. There's a part of me that's not very happy because I know what it took me to gain admission. I had to take JAMB a few times. And I never scored 150, by the way, right? My first JAMB score was way higher than 150, and I still couldn't get admitted. It was the second, I think, that got me into school. So if you wake up and now hear that, you know what, with 150, you're good to go. I don't know. You want to ask, so what about us? What about what we went through? I will not go and start dragging with, the kids now, but it just seems unfair. But hey, it is what it is. Ministry of Education says 150 is a cutoff. What is your position? 0817 923 0002. 0817 923 0003. WhatsApp is 080 903 06 416. Please turn off your radio as you call. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, SOC.
Good evening. What's your name?
Yes, I can. Calling from Moving.
Go ahead.
SOC, I don't know if our Minister of Education is an educationalist. Do you know about that? Hello?
I'm listening.
Because what I'm asking, the system we find ourselves is a situation where a lawyer will leave the court and go to the hospital, where a doctor will leave the hospital and go to classroom. That is what we are suffering for. Now, let me let you know this. SOC, during my own time, I bought syllabus during my own time. Before a teacher will come to any topic which I had already read, the way I will ask him or her question, they will be surprised. I don't know if you are getting me.
I understand
so
completely.
If I may still ask, do they still share syllabus in bookshops or in the market, I want to align to subscribe with your guest, letting us know that the way we are seeing ourselves educationally, it may cause damage in future.
Okay.
That is why I started by asking, is our Minister of Education really an educationist, just like your guest? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. According to records available in the public domain, Dr. Tunji Alausa is a medical doctor and he was practicing before he became education minister. But the reason why I laughed is because I got a syllabus as well. We had different ones at different times. And yes, I remember those days. My goodness. We read like our life depended on it. And I never considered myself a bright student per se, right? I never did. But it was a requirement. You know, your life literally depended on it because that was the standard at the time. It is crazy how low the standard has fallen. It truly is tragic. Hello, good evening.
Hello, Sam, good evening.
Good evening. What's your name?
My name is Lawson. I'm calling from Yanagua. I don't understand, really. This time now is a time where knowledge is available everywhere. Just with the touch of a button, you can get any knowledge you want. In our time, we work so hard to get knowledge.
True.
Trying to look for meaning of things. You see me going to the library, opening encyclopedia. And then you lower the standards to this extent for them. It's just like a presenter now. You're like your time where you are presenting. That you can compare it to presenters of those days that have to struggle to get knowledge before they come and present. Like you now, presentation is very easy because as you are seated down there, you can touch a button and then know anything in this world. So I just as I cannot compare you, Sam, with people who presented when probably back then when we had a radio river, you can compare you with those kind of, and then they don't come and lower the standard for you. That's what they are doing. And it is very wrong, honestly. Those days, even 250 can get you admission.
Yeah, true.
Even in arts and social sciences. It was very difficult, especially in River State. It was tough. UST, Uniport. You had a lot of people were going to Calabar. And yes, Calabar then, where somehow they consider some of their scores. It's really unfortunate. I wonder what Nigeria is turning into, where we are going with all of this. I am still trying to wrap my head around it. And that is the 150 for university, colleges of education and polytechnics. They are even talking of 100.
100, yeah.
Yeah. My brother Sam, some things it's not even ideal for analysis. Honestly, when this policy came up, I felt very bad. I just hope that time will come. That time will not come in this country where a graduate cannot even spell his name correctly. I just hope we don't get to that.
We're there already. I'm certain. I'm certain there are graduates you'd speak to today, and right, you would need a lot of convincing to believe that the person is a graduate. I know I have had an encounter with some, as I'm certain a lot of people have as well. And Lawson is right. With 250, you did not get admission that time. 250. You were considered really lucky. As a matter of fact, sometimes you had to settle for a course you did not want, because that's all you could get. Oh my. Okay, we definitely need to do better. Good evening, Sam. I was wondering what our education system has turned into. I remember in the early 2000s, I scored 245 in JAMB. That means you can't count the money generate for federal government. I rest my case. Amber from Rumi Igbo. Sam, please pin this message behind you next year that I told you hard the cut for JAMB will nosedive further than it has. And Nigerian education is indeed falling out of standard and it's suffering from epilepsy. Little wonder internet fraud is taking over Nigeria by the youths because they think education is a scam. Clinton Mr. Fresh in Port Harcourt says. And this simply says Firefly. I'm not quite sure what you mean. Melody says 150 over 400 is too poor for admission. It is even beyond average. It shows how much we have lowered standards. What do you expect when mediocrity is the order of the day among our leaders? In a country where leaders produce voodoo certificates, the most ironic aspect is that those that score the lowest are admitted to study educational courses, thereby creating a room where those who are poorly capable of studying will be deployed to classrooms. Okay, good day. The JAMB 150 cutoff mark for admission into Nigerian University may seem improper, but JAMB may have taken into cognizance their inefficiency and technical glitches suffered by candidates during the JAMB examination. JAMB's decision is justified because good students are not measured by JAMB scores. On the 16 years of age for admission, this will definitely promote age falsification in the child civil service life. Let's apply 18 for admission into universities, Elder Joel says. Sam, how come all of us work so hard in the past? 150 cutoff mark is not the highest. Serious students can work hard to get 3 and 400 now. Are we not praying that our children should be luckier than us? Aminu is asking. Well, it is what it is. I don't know what to say, but fingers crossed. Yeah, that's that. I do have brings us.